The city of Miami. From serenading white sand beaches to gorgeous city skylines, the Magic City is nestled nicely in the south of Florida. Miami is home to over 6 million people and a very popular vacation destination, making its market for sports huge. In 1966, Joe Robbie and Danny Thomas took advantage of this by founding the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins quickly hit the ground running by not only winning the Super Bowl in 1972, but doing so after recording the first perfect season in the Super Bowl era. They then followed this up with another Super Bowl victory in 1973. However, this was the last time the Fins won a Super Bowl. With 23 playoff appearances and all-time franchise players like Dan Marino, Larry Zonka, and Jason Taylor, the Dolphins are immortalized in NFL history. But that's not why you're watching this video. This past season, Miami completely blew up their team. They traded away star players like Laremy Tunsil, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Robert Quinn, Kenyon Drake, Ryan Tannehill, and Kenny Stills, and in return received immense draft capital. Miami was rebuilding, and they wanted everyone to know. Expectations were at an all-time low for Miami, and some analysts speculated that they could go the season without winning a game. Well, come mid-season, the Dolphins were 0-7. And then first-year head coach Brian Flores turned this team around, leading them to a 5-11 finish following big wins over teams like the Philadelphia Eagles and New England Patriots. This finish to the season gave fans and the organization hope that the Dolphins already have a base to build off of. In this series, I plan on doing my best to take advantage of the Miami Dolphins situation and to rebuild them how I envisioned.
How's it going? Mallen here. You caught me wearing my Mallen Productions merch, which you can find in the link below. Make sure to use code Mallen, M-A-L-L-E-N, all caps, for free shipping at checkout. Although I would love to wear this shirt for the rest of the video because it's so comfortable, which is why you should get your own, this isn't really giving me the Miami vibes, so I'm gonna go change. Alright, now we're cooking with gas. Let's get into the video. As it stands right now, cap room is far from the issue for the Miami Dolphins. They currently stand at $94 million in cap room, with their two biggest cap hits being safety Rashad Jones and wide receiver Albert Wilson. Both of those I'm going to discuss later in the video when their given positions come up. But both contracts will definitely be addressed because there's never enough cap room. Starting off with the quarterback position, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, and Jake Rudock all currently on the roster. Jake Rudock was signed off the practice squad, where he most likely will end up next season unless he's picked up by another team. Josh Rosen, you invested a third-round pick for. You hold on to him, and you try to develop him, and maybe you can get a third-round pick back next year if you're able to develop and trade him. Now Ryan Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic. What do we do with this mystery? He goes and he throws for 3,500 yards last season, 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a 62% completion percentage. Now, on any other team, this wouldn't be far from impressive. However, this is the Miami Dolphins we're talking about. This dude barely had any weapons. Devontae Parker, that's it. He had barely any protection, and he came out and he turned this team around. So, just for that, you keep Ryan Fitzpatrick, you bring him back for another year. He already has another year on his contract. You keep him, you use him as your bridge quarterback going into the future when you draft another quarterback. Coming up next, we have the running back position. As everybody knows, Kenyon Drake was traded to the Cardinals mid-season from the Miami Dolphins. After that trade, Kenyon Drake absolutely blew up for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this left the Miami Dolphins with close to nobody in their backfield. We're left with Kalen Ballage, Patrick Laird, and Myles Gaskins. Patrick Laird led this running back group with 168 yards, while running back Kalen Ballage led this running back group with 3 touchdowns. Ryan Fitzpatrick ended up being the leading rusher for the Miami Dolphins this past season, which doesn't really bode well for any of these guys. All 3 of these running backs should definitely be brought back to the roster, but only as depth. Looking into free agency or the draft for a running back position is crucial in this point in time for the Dolphins. With all of their needs offensively and defensively, the Miami Dolphins actually don't really have to worry about the receiver position. Devontae Parker blew up this year for 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, and he has solidified himself as a #1 receiver. Devontae Parker recently signed a 4-year extension, so you don't have to worry about his contract. He's going to be on your roster for the long term. As for wide receiver Allen Hurns, he's a nice wide receiver 4, a nice depth guy. He posted about 400 yards last season with a pair of touchdowns. Now, he's not anybody flashy, but they brought him back for another 2 years, so he obviously is going to be a part of their future success. One of the guys that the Miami Dolphins should resign is Isaiah Ford. He's young, at 23 years old, and he showed some flashes this past season, along with Preston Williams. Both are fast, well-built guys who can definitely complement Devontae Parker on the outside. Matt Collins and Gary Jennings both also have some pretty good size and should be brought back for depth receivers. Now they got a chance to play the Miami Dolphins, but both have a lot of potential. Albert Wilson is another receiver that's currently on the roster for the Miami Dolphins. With a $10.8 million cap hit, you need to cut him and save $9.5 million. That way the Miami Dolphins cap space goes up above $100 million, and you can make a big splash in the free agency market. Wide receiver Jakeem Grant is another receiver that I bring back as a wide receiver running back hybrid. Although he doesn't have the prettiest contract, he's going to make for a great special teamer. As for the tight end group, you have Mike Gesicki, Durham Smythe, and Clive Walford. Mike Gesicki is a superstar in the making. He had posted 570 yards and 5 touchdowns this year, which doesn't seem, anything but lackluster. However, a large percentage of that came at the end of the year when Ryan Fitzpatrick was throwing him 7-8 passes a game. Mike Gesicki posted great combine numbers, and going into his third year, I expect him to finish the season as a top 10 tight end. Offensive line wasn't really that great of a group for the Miami Dolphins this past season. They gave up 58 sacks. However, it doesn't mean that the offensive line isn't salvageable. Michael Dieter is a great prospect coming into the draft this past season. As a rookie, he didn't fare that bad as a starting position at guard. Jesse Davis just got a 4-year extension, and he also showed pretty good production. Daniel Kilgore, at 32 years old, has 1 more year left on his contract. However, if you go into the draft and look at bringing in somebody later in the rounds, you can definitely develop somebody to play behind Daniel Kilgore next season. A lot of these other guys like Julian Davenport are going to be brought back as depth. However, I expect this team to have a new left tackle and right guard going into next season. Taco Charlton was a huge get for the Miami Dolphins this season. Charlton added 5 sacks in his short tenure here in Miami. This was great production seeing the few games that he played, and he definitely stays on this roster next year as your starting left end. As for interior defensive linemen, the Miami Dolphins are set. Christian Wilkins was drafted last season by the Miami Dolphins in the first round. Christian Wilkins showed average production with 56 tackles and 2 sacks, adding 4 tackles for a loss. However, for a first-round pick, this isn't quite the production you'd like to see. Christian Wilkins needs to step it up next season, which I believe he can. Pair him with Davad Godchow, who this past season had 75 tackles, 2 sacks, and 5 tackles for a loss, and you have a nice interior D-line. Re-sign John Jenkins and have that veteran presence in your locker room and for your defensive line would be huge. He's a great guy to add to the rotation, and he did sack Tom Brady this year. Gerald Willis didn't get a chance to play, seeing as he was on IR, but he's another guy that you're going to keep on this roster. Aside from the wide receiver group, linebacker was another position where the Miami Dolphins don't have an issue. Jerome Baker was arguably the MVP of this Miami Dolphins team this past year. He posted 126 tackles, 6.5 tackles for a loss, 4 pass deflections, and a pick. Jerome Baker was a great prospect coming out. I personally loved him. He is going to be a key piece to building back your defense. Raekwon McMillan is a superstar in the making. However, he had a down year. He had 72 tackles, no sacks or interceptions. Charles Harris is one player that a lot of people are naming as a bust, but you have him for 1 more year. You put him out there, and hopefully he can fill out that edge position. Sam Egevon, I believe I said that right, was a player that nobody saw coming this past season. He came out of the framework. He posted 42 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 7 tackles for a loss, and an interception. After going undrafted, this guy came out and said he had something to prove. He statistically was the 2nd best linebacker for the Miami Dolphins this past season. I see him starting on the other side of Jerome Baker next season. Trent Harris and Andrew Van Ginkel are both 2 linebackers that I'm going to bring back for the Miami Dolphins as depth. That way, they already know the system, they already know your defense, and you can roll with them and not have to worry about the linebacker position next season. As it stands right now, the Miami Dolphins don't have the most attractive secondary. Xavier Howard was an absolute force last season, where he posted the most interceptions in the league. However, this past season, he was pretty banged up and didn't really get much playing time. Although he recently had a felony, this is a guy that you definitely keep on the roster because he is a superstar in your secondary position. Aqib Talib was a player that the Miami Dolphins traded for, but didn't see any production. It's purely a move to save the Rams and cap. The Miami Dolphins benefited with an additional pick. Cordea Tankersley is a cornerback that was on IR most of the season, and you got to bring back as a depth corner. Eric Rowe is another cornerback that Miami Dolphins need to bring back. He can play safety or he can play corner, and although he can be inconsistent at times and blow coverage, it's rare to get a player that can play both positions and start. Nick Needham, much like Sam Agavon, was another player that came out of the framework. He posted 54 tackles, 11 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions, and will be your cornerback number 2 going into next season. Ken Webster and Montre Hardage are 2 players in the secondary. They need to return next year for the Miami Dolphins. You always need more depth. With 25 tackles, 3 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions, Bobby McCain was a solid starter this past season for the Dolphins. I bring him back as your starting free safety for next season. Rashad Jones is getting up there in age. He has the highest cap hit on the team, and he didn't really produce much this past season. He was banged up with injuries, and he didn't really get on the field. The largest issue with this is the Miami Dolphins can't make any moves with him without incurring dead cap before June 1st of this upcoming year. With that said, after June 1st, they can release or trade Rashad Jones and save close to $12 million in cap room. This is a move that time will tell where he looks in practice. However, I have Miami Dolphins keeping him going into next season. This reason being, the Miami Dolphins already have enough to worry about rebuilding. Why add another issue to the list that needs to be repaired? Special teams is something I'm not too worried about. Jason Sanders and Matt Hack both can come back for the Miami Dolphins this next season. All right, guys, that was my How to Fix the Miami Dolphins Rebuild video, part 1. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about the video, what you would have done differently, what other teams you would like to see next time I do this, and what you want to see in part 2 of this video. Right now, I'm thinking about doing the draft, free agency, and just a final roster breakdown. If you liked the video, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe if you have not already. You can click that notifications bell if you'd like. That way you'll be notified every time I make a video. Once again, thank you for watching. Take care. Oh, you're still here. Well, if you want to click right here, you can watch another video, or right here and you can subscribe. Either is fine with me. Have a nice day.